So because I don't know the name of it, I refer to this lovingly as Big Beach. Only because it's sort of like, it's deeper. Now, okay, so it's Sunday at about 9 a.m. Okay, so Gracie and I came down here a couple reasons. One is that I wanted to go to this larger beach. I'm a big fan of beach walking. But secondly, I wanted to expand, maybe I guess I'll just call this part 2 on why Thailand, right? And so, sort of to follow up and I guess dovetail on where I left off last time, is, you know, after that sort of first trip, let's say, to Thailand. So a couple things happened. Not the least of which is I got in my first motorbike accident. How did that happen? So I had a helmet and I was on a motorbike, and I'll give you an example of how farang I was. So I'm sitting there and I'm talking to this girl, and there was this motorbike, and I was thinking of renting a motorbike. And in Pattaya at the time, I think I was like renting motorbikes for like 300 baht a day. And of course I was there, several sort of bullet points. I was there, I was new, and I thought the cost of stuff was just ridiculously low. To the point where, 300 baht was just like, 100 baht was no money. Right? Because it was just such a delta. And again, I was on vacation too. So, but the point is that there was this motorbike, and renting was, I was like not in the mood. And so she says, well, yeah, my friend's trying to sell this motorbike. And I said, oh, how much? And she's like, well, she wants like 25,000 baht or something like that. And I said, tell her I'll give her 10,000 baht right now. And she's like, no, there's no way. I said, okay, well, whatever. So about 15, 20 minutes later, I had a motorbike for 10,000 baht because it was getting into January. And I discovered that a lot of people go home in January. Anyway, so I get this motorbike, and I'm kind of happy. It's kind of cool. And so I start cruising around in it. And from Pattaya, I went down to Jomtien. And again, not only did I have helmets, she and I actually went to like a motorbike store and bought like decent helmets. Now they weren't full face, but they were helmets nonetheless, and they were good and they were brand new. And they were a couple thousand baht. And so we're coming back from Jomtien, and I'm being fairly, careful in the sense that I'm looking around. And I get to, if you know anything about sort of the pathway from Jomtien back to Pattaya, we're underneath like sort of that bridge, or just past that bridge, and I'm sitting there and I'm behind. It's the route that the Bot bus takes, the Songtao, and so I'm sitting there behind one, and I'm stopped, and there's the stoplight, and I'm like right behind it to the point where like right in front of my face is that like silver metal part of the back of the Bot bus, where the guys will like kind of stand like almost on that frame that's like over the bumper, and they'll hang on and they'll just like kind of sit there, and it's got like that little, that sort of like little loop, that little bend where you can like kind of rest your butt, and you can usually like one person can kind of just sit in there and you're kind of hanging on the back. And I'm right there, and I'm idling on the bike waiting for the light to change. And I vaguely remember turning to the left. I vaguely remember, like, hours later, I flashed on this. Where's Gracie? Oh, she's in the shade, because she's Asian. I vaguely remember flashing back on that. But half an hour later, I came to in the emergency room of, I'm going to have to double check on this, but I believe it was Pattaya General Hospital. I know it wasn't Pattaya International Hospital. It's the Pattaya Hospital that's basically on Soi Buakhao, which is arguably the sort of the Thai hospital, if you will. So I'm there at the in the emergency room, 30 minutes later, I look down, I have my blood on my shirt, I have my blood on her sweater, and I'm like, oh my God, what now? So, we got sticky rice, we got chicken and sticky rice before we sat down here. Where we're sitting, take a picture of our surroundings here, is in the very standard, at the Thai beach, in the Thai chairs, using the Thai table, eating street food that we got. Each of us to sit here is 80 baht basically for the whole day. Basically $2.80, $2.90, something like that. So I basically come to in the emergency room in the hospital in Pattaya on Sobukau. And I'm like, okay, what am I doing? I'm in a seat. Within a few minutes, I'm then on a gurney kind of bed thing. And I have a doctor on my left. I have a nurse on my right. And I have one nurse on my left foot. And I have another nurse on by my right foot. And each of the nurses is like doing something different to me. So the one on my left foot is taking care of my left toe, which is like sliced all to hell. The one on my right leg is doing something with my right leg, which is like kind of bruised and stuff. And I'll see if I can find, I have a few pictures from like way back then. So I'll see if I can put them in here. I mean, it wasn't like my bones were broken. Anyway, what I had on the side of my face, though, was a hematoma, in the sense that what I believe happened was this side of my face, right here on my chin, hit the metal frame that you probably seen on the back of these song taos, on the back of these bot buses in Pattaya, the chrome, frame thing. And I believe my face hit that, and it swelled up like crazy. And no thanks. And so the doctor, who is male, on my left, he informed me that what they did is they took x-rays of my whole head. He showed me the machine. It was one of these things that went, right, did the whole thing. Showed me the x-ray. He said, look, everything's fine. You didn't crack your skull or anything like, oh, my crap. They didn't, there's nothing like, there's no permanent brain damage. My crap. That's the only downside to sitting here is that, and here's our coconut guy. So we got a fresh coconut, which is awesome. And it's quite large for 50 baht. And so anyway, so he does all of this. Okay, this is a fresh coconut. Tell me it's cold.
No, it's not.
It's not cold.
Maybe they just come here, so it's not.
But it's quite good. Now here's the reason we're doing this. We'll take a picture of this. We'll take a picture of it right in front of the thing. Many people, including my mom, asked me, so what are you going to do in your first day, your first week, that sort of thing? And I said, you know what? I am not going to measure my new time in Thailand in days, hours, weeks. It's going to be measured in coconuts. So, this is coconut number 1. And as of now, we have a motorbike for the month, we have a condo for the month, we have our first coconut, and we're eating breakfast at the beach, and I'm doing my video. Good stuff. So I am convinced that I've been given decent enough care in this hospital. I go to leave, and so they bring me to reception, checkout kind of thing, and I'm going to pay, right? So I look in my pocket where I have all of my stuff, like my passport and my insurance and all of this. And I think, okay, well, I've got insurance, so this is going to be okay. So they give me the invoice for all of this. And I was there for about 2 hours, probably, I guess, in total, looking at my watch and the series of events. And the entire bill was, I believe it was $12.73 with the current exchange rate. The current exchange rate at the time when I came here was about what it is now. It's about 30, 29, 30. I was like, okay, this is pretty good coverage for this kind of money. I was a little skeptical, but I was also pretty pleased with the fact that all of the caretakers, basically, the physicians, spoke English and gave me what I believed was appropriate care. I mean, they showed me these x-rays they had of me or whatever. So I left, and while I was in pain, I was like, okay, well, this is pretty good. And the way I was coming home was from Suvarnabhumi through Incheon, over, bless you, over to Honolulu. And I was going to spend another week in Maui and then cruise back home. So for part 2 of this, why did I choose Thailand? The amount of care that I got was fantastic medically. I realized later. At the time, I thought, this is pretty good care, but I was, naive, I suppose, but also a little bit skeptical. But I also had, like, the rose-colored glasses on, too, and I was like, oh, my God, Thailand's amazing, $13, blah, 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 blah. I should get in accidents more often. No, that was not the goal. What I forgot to tell you was the way that I made it to the hospital is there was, there's motorbike taxis, drivers, right? Well, in Pattaya, where we were, and probably in other places, there's guys that wear vests. And on the vests, on the back, it sort of says, like, the region they're around. So there's, like, Soy Bukkao, or there's, whatever, sort of. Anyway, this guy, on the back of his vest, was that hospital. And so basically his sort of route that he would do was that around that hospital on Bukkao. So this guy takes me and the friend I was with at the time to the hospital. And then afterward, because we were in an accident and apparently the police showed up, the bike was impounded and taken to like some impound lot. So the guy puts us on the back of his motorbike. So again, there's 3 people that he takes us to the ER, 3 people he takes us to the impound lot, and the cops have the bike, and there's like the mirrors busted and there was like a scratch on it or whatever. But there was no one else involved, right? So there was no like really big deal. But there was paperwork that needed to be filed, and it really didn't sort of affect the whole scenario. It was just, we had to go to, that police station that's right on Beach Road there in Pattaya. I had to go to that place, and I had to say, hey, here's a copy of my passport. Yes, I got into this accident. I have absolutely no clue how it happened or whatever. And I don't even know whether I had to pay them to, like, release my bike or whatever. But I know that they did bring it to me eventually. And I don't know whether I remember they rolled it down off the back of a pickup truck, and I don't really remember whether they did it at that police station, and I don't know whether I gave them any money, so obviously it wasn't a significant amount where I was like, oh yeah, and I had to pay them 10,000 baht to give them a bike. No. It wasn't anything like that. And quite frankly, it was a non-event. It was just attention units I had to allocate to get the bike back. Fine. Paperwork, signed something. Well, they did all the paperwork. I just signed something and gave them a copy of my passport. So anyway, so this guy did that, and then he takes me back to the hotel. And then he and the friend talked about something in Thai, and I go upstairs. And then he's going to go get the motorbike with a friend of his and bring it to the hotel. Fine, so they do that. And then he comes upstairs, and he gives me the keys, or he comes in, actually, and he said something wasn't sure what it was, and he walks me to the window, and he points down to show me that he's like brought the bike back, and there's his friend standing next to my bike, and they wave, and I'm like, okay. So he gives me the keys to the bike, and then he leaves. And I'm like, I got to give this guy some money. So then she's like, no, don't worry about it. He'll be back in a minute. All right, fine. So what he did was, apparently he went downstairs, and he filled all the prescriptions that I had, and then came back and gave them to me. And I was like, this guy has been driving me all over the place. He took me to the hospital. He would not accept 1 penny more than the value or the cost of the prescription medication. I'm like, dude, you like saved my life. I mean, you like took me to the hospital. So again, this amazing experience basically that came out of, not tragedy, but certainly disappointment, this silly accident I got in. That was sort of checkbox number 2, because interestingly enough, if you go back to the previous video about how I found my Mexico at first, and then I found my New Mexico, and now I've found my Thailand. I got into an accident in Mexico. Some guy like literally drove into the back of my Volkswagen Bug on his motorcycle, this young kid who was drinking too much, I think. hit the back, flipped over the front of it, and then I had to slam on the brakes and cut my foot or whatever of the car. But they took me to the hospital in the ambulance and stitched me up and took care of me and everything. And this was in San Felipe, and charged me no money. So they took really good care of me. So once again, here I am having this sort of Mexico experience, right? I've found my New Mexico. It's comparative and it's better, right? So once again, my Thailand is my New Mexico. And so I am very pleased with this. And I'll end the story basically with sort of just putting parentheses around this and telling you about the medical experience that really solidified it for me. So I land in Hawaii, and then from Oahu I fly over to Maui. And in Maui Memorial Hospital has a agreement with Kaiser Permanente from California, which is the coverage I had. So I call up Kaiser and I say, hey, look, I got in this accident. Like, can I just do some stuff here and then you bill? They say, yeah. Just go to Maui Memorial, just walk right into the ER and tell them you got into this accident. They'll do their stuff, blah, 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 and then they'll direct bill us. Great. So I do that. So Kaiser also has facilities in Maui. Right? They're like, no, go to Maui Memorial and have them check you out in the ER. Fine. Because of the head injury possible and all that. So I go to the ER. And they do a very similar sort of process. They check me in, and then I go into this room, and there's this machine, right? That's this whole head X-ray as I'm standing there. And they do the X-rays, everything. They come out, and they literally did basically every single process, every single procedure and interface with me that was done in Thailand. And arguably, it took about 3 times as long. The doctor came in and asked me a few questions, then left. Now, this was not, and I would have sort of been like, okay, that's, fine, acceptable behavior for this emergency room, had there been a room full of people and people had broken arms and it was like a crazy weekend or something like that. It was me and one other person in the emergency room waiting. So they didn't have a high volume of people. And as far as I'm concerned, the care was not as good. Now, the facility arguably was quite new, and so one could argue that the equipment was better. But nonetheless, I basically got the same care. Now, what was funny is they said, hey, do you need anything for the pain? And I got these things from Thailand. And I said, do you have any of these? Anyway, it's fairly effective. And whenever I've taken it, and as far as I know, when you took it, you don't feel like you're on drugs. You don't feel out of it, right? The pain just sort of, it doesn't immediately go away like you're on morphine. But, I mean, it's it was helpful, right? So at the end of the day, it's basically like ibuprofen, maybe. Anyway, so I showed them to them, and they said, oh, well, do you want that? I said, well, I guess. I mean, it was pretty effective. And they said, okay, well, usually we don't prescribe this because it's very expensive. And they said, well, how much did this cost you? And I said, I don't know. So I looked at it, and it was $100. So it was $2.80 for 10 tablets. And she's like, okay. She said, well, that's $160 here, Of course, it's covered with Kaiser. There's a copay. And, I mean, I'm not going to get into the ridiculousness of the pharmaceutical industry, in the United States, but it won't shock you to learn that the cost of medication in the United States, the exact same medication by the exact same manufacturer in Thailand, was less expensive, right? So anyway, so that was sort of one of all these check boxes, and I thought, okay, so Thailand is better. Now, you could also say, yes, Mike, but the chances of you getting into a silly accident like that in the United States are less. Okay, perhaps. Would I have been riding a motorbike like that in the United States? No, because where I live, it is either surfaced, I would have had a car. Where I live in Southern California, you either walk, you have a bicycle, or you have a car. Because motorcycles, while interesting, to get places in Southern California, you basically end up going on the freeway. Whereas motorbikes here, we drive on these little, beach roads, effectively, surface streets. There are no freeways. I'm not gonna cruise up to Bangkok on our motorbike, where there are, freeways, expressways, highways. Let's just say that. So anyway, so that was just sort of the second reason, and And in the next one, in the next series, the next part of this series, I'll get into the reasons why I came back, and why I believe this is definitely the right place for the next reason I'll possibly come up with, and why it's definitely the next the right place for us to be, certainly for right now. It's close to Gracie's home, and the chances of us being able to get Eureese a passport and have her come over here and join us is pretty good.
It's more quiet and safe.
It's quiet. It's safe. It's absolutely safe. Here's what's great. Gracie can walk around by herself.
I'm just afraid of dogs.
Yeah, she's
That's
afraid.
all.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so she's more afraid of the dogs in Thailand, the stray dogs, than you are of the people.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty cool. Now again, you weren't really afraid of people in Coronado,
No.
right? I mean, so it's not really a fair comparison to the United States. But point is that it's a good place for us to be right now. So anyway, so it's Mike's
Gracie,
from LiveMyAssOff.com saying, I hope you live in the dream, because if you're not living the dream,
you're doing it wrong.
ciao.